What's going on, Port fans? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we'll be previewing Port Adelaide's Round 7 clash against the West Coast Eagles, which takes place at Optus Stadium this Saturday afternoon at 4:05 PM SA time. So let's dive in and have a look and see what this game will bring this weekend. Just before we begin, a special mention to Rick Neuenhoven, also New Vision Finance. They want to help you save money. Let them find you a lower interest rate before lending gets harder. And you'll qualify for a free tax return, so make sure you check out, if you're obviously over the age of 18, check out New Vision Finance and they'll be able to help you out with all your loan needs and any special finance requests that you have. So make sure you check them out. The link is in the comments below. So anyway, let's get into this preview for this week's game. I'm feeling a bit under the weather here, so bear with me if my speech sounds like an absolute... There you go. See, I've already stuffed up. So West Coast this weekend, round 7. They're in a fine form this year so far, West Coast. I think it might be the new Optus Stadium, just giving them a bit of extra energy going into the contest. It was the same thing with Port Adelaide back in 2014, where out of nowhere Port Adelaide came to the top of the ladder. They were just sensational with the new Adelaide Oval, the Fortress as we still call it. So I think that same effect may be happening to the West Coast Eagles. Same, not so much for Fremantle, but this is the first time we'll be playing at Optus Stadium this year. First time I think a South Australian team is going to be playing at Optus Stadium. Brand spanking new. The turf is quite hard, as we've heard. So whether that affects Patty Ryder coming in or not, we will see later today. Obviously, with the changes that were supposed to come in. A lot of people have compared this ground to an MCG-esque type structure. It's very wide. It's very big. And that's pretty much, that plays into Port hands very well, because we do have a good record as of late playing at the MCG. So if this ground is anything similar to obviously in the MCG, then Optus Stadium maybe become a good hunting ground for us. So in terms of playing West Coast itself, we all know what happened last year. I'm not going to go over it because it hurts every time. But I think the main thing this week is to take that motivation of last year and try and right a wrong. So with this week's game, I think we have to focus on ourselves as a team first, not so much West Coast, because this week's all about gaining more momentum going into the showdown and then going into China before we have our bye. It's essential, though, that we control the game, because West Coast, we saw them against Geelong. If they get a good start, they'll burst out of the blocks. Yeah, Geelong came back and looked like they were going to win the game, but West Coast had all that home ground momentum from their crowd, which is a very noisy crowd, as some of you may have seen through TV or if you've been there live. It's just a great atmosphere, as I've heard. So to all the Port fans travelling over there, make sure you be extra loud, because it's going to really help our team. We need to bring the fight this week. We need to go into this week's game the same we went last week. You know, a bit of an unknown feeling. Really taking that. I think last week we were basically underdogs, I felt, after the week we've had. This week now, we've got the opportunity again. We go into this game as underdogs. It's West Coast home game, Optus Stadium. It's a game that we probably need to win for a team confidence as such. You know, we've beaten Fremantle, who are an okay side, Sydney, who are a top 8 team, Brisbane, we've beaten North Melbourne, who are in good form. So the teams we've beaten aren't really bad teams at all. The teams we haven't beaten are the teams we should be beating in terms of if we want to take that next step. Essendon and Geelong we lost to. This week, West Coast away, it's a big, big chance and a big opportunity to take our game to the next level and take our team confidence to new heights, because we take a win like this and then go into the showdown, we may finally be able to beat the Crows. But that's for next week. So West Coast are a very dangerous team. They've got the likes of McGovern. They've got Kennedy, who's in fine form after coming back from injury. Their midfield with Shuey. They've got Gaff. I mean, Nat Newey's back this year. He wasn't there last year. So it's an interesting structure they've got, but it works. And their defence is tall. They are able to shut down teams pressing up. They are able to shut down teams who have got the quick ball movement from defence to attack. Their transition footy is fantastic. And it's just basically a new West Coast Eagles team this year, and we've got to watch out for that. Our team has got to be on from the get-go. We can't play catch-up, especially against West Coast, who have got so much scoring power now. They're very easily looking to be one of the better teams this year. But saying that, you know, who have they beaten is another question. They've beaten Geelong. They didn't beat Sydney at home. They've beaten Gold Coast. They've beaten... They beat Fremantle in a great derby last week. They've beaten a couple of other teams as well. Carlton at the MCG. So they're proving themselves quite a plucky team as such. So I reckon they've got a good opportunity this week, West Coast. But then again, we've got to take our opportunity. And I have a good feeling about this week, Port fans. It's just a matter of us getting a good start this week, especially against the grain, against the home team. As I said, we've got to shut down Kennedy. So who takes him? That's a big question. I feel Tommy Jonas gets the job this week. Got the job on Ben Brown last week. Did a fantastic job. All bar he kicked 4 goals. That doesn't matter. 3 of those goals were in junk time. That's fine. So Tommy Jonas gets the job on Kennedy. McGovern's going to be a roaming forward. I feel like Jack Watts gets the opportunity there. Take him out one-on-one. You've got Dixon, who will probably play more deep in the forward line. So you've got to really isolate that. Because last year, we remember in the final, although I don't want to bring it up, we played, I think it was McKenzie on Dixon, and Dixon played him like an absolute doll. He just threw him around like a Hulk and Loki in the movie Avengers. And the other thing as well, does Patty Ryder come into the side this week? I feel like it's a 50-50 one, because we've heard so much about this ground being so hard, the turf being really soft on top, but once you really dig your feet in, that's a real problem for Patty Ryder, especially with his Achilles. If it's a stress-related tendon issue, if he's jumping up and down in that game on that surface, I think 1 week is not the risk for 6 more that he'll probably miss if he re-aggravates that injury. He's got to really take this game and say, well, look, I want to be part of this team for the rest of the year. If this ground is going to be any risk to my ankle or my Achilles, don't risk him. But in saying that, it's a big game. We play against Nat Newey. Paddy versus Nat Newey is probably one of the best ruck combinations going around if they play against each other. One of the most exciting ruck duels it will be. So yeah, does Paddy play? I think so. Which is a good tie into next, which was the changes for this week. Now, we all know Chad Wingard is out. Hamstring injury, that's a couple of weeks. Who comes in? I think straight swap for Sam Powell-Pepper. He deserves his opportunity to come back and prove himself after his suspension. Played a pretty good role last week in the SANFL Anzac Day clash against Sturt. And the other one is Patty Ryder does come in. Don Barry goes out. He's probably the unfortunate one. You could argue a couple of others may come out too, like Carl Amon, but I thought he was pretty good last week. Speaking of the Magpies, they play Norwood this week after their bye. Friday night footy as well for the SANFL at Norwood Oval. So it's going to be an interesting game, especially if Port bring in the likes of Rockcliffe and Trengove to the power side. Does that affect the structure of the Magpies team? And watching last week, some of the highlights, it looks like we struggled to go forward. We probably dominate the midfield. Frampton has to play more of a ruck role. They can't really do the Hayes and Frampton matchup and Laddams down forward. Laddams is struggling down there, and if Frampton is playing in the ruck, Hayes is probably off having a rest. Our forward structure, we've got no forward in there, especially without Marshall, who was playing there last year. Something's got to be fixed there for the Magpies side, otherwise it's going to be a very interesting year to see how this affects, the whole team in general. So the Magpies, though, Friday night footy, if you're heading down there, give them a loud cheer because it should be a good game of footy. Now we come to the predictions of the game. It is Optus Stadium, Saturday afternoon, 4:05 PM for SA time. I'm going with Port by 3 to 4 goals. I really feel like we're going to bring a good game this week. It'll be a good game of footy at Optus Stadium, and I really feel that we will get the job done, especially with the likes of, Robbie Gray and Ollie Wines in good form. Sam Gray's hitting the track really well. Our team is finally starting to look like it's been a bit more balanced now, especially if Patty comes in. That's an absolute bonus, and we've been looking forward to this time for about 6 or 7 weeks now. So all important is Patty has to come in, and if he comes in, Port get the job done. Well, Port fans, thank you very much for tuning in this week, and to everyone else who is tuning in through Spreaker or is another fan of another club, thank you very much for watching this preview. I really feel like this week's game is going to be an absolute beauty, and let's hope Port Adelaide get the job done. And just quickly, a few shout out to a couple of Instagram friends I've got going on here. Shout out to the Collingwood Magpies fan page as well. His username should pop up there. The West Coast Eagles fan page run by Jordan. He is down there as well. Make sure you follow him. The Adelaide Facebook page. I know I'm shouting the Crows, but what am I? I'm a people person. Make sure you check out Kale's page. And then the Sydney Swans, Big Stath, following him on Instagram as well if you're a Sydney fan or interested in any of the footy pages I've just mentioned. Give him a shout. Follow in the link below. Thank you very much for tuning in, Port fans. As always, follow the Porters podcast, 8 PM every Wednesday night. Our latest podcast is up on Spreaker, so check that out. And also, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe for plenty more Port Adelaide content, plenty more to come. It's only round 7. I look forward to seeing your thoughts of the game for this weekend in the comments below. Thank you very much for tuning in, Port fans. My name is Anthony, and obviously, count a pair.